the actual vegetation underwater. After we have this material recorded, we have our coastline is approximately 500 kilometers long, and of course, in order to map all this coastline, we should work for some 20 years or so, taking into account that we have so far done 100 kilometers in the last 5 years. So when this recording has been done, we analyze this video material, and then we follow up this information, and we take the different samples of algae in order to get to know the actual indigenous species. So here we can see the divers who take the samples. Here you can see a picture of the actual underwater algae plantation. And for example, here we can see Nida-Pērkona area, which is a protected area. Here we can see a coastline with the length of around 25 kilometers, and it goes off coast for some 20 kilometers. And we also recorded some video material, and afterwards the divers went in actually to carry out some in-depth analysis by taking samples, etc. This was carried out within the Life Nature project. We also carry out the ground analysis, and we also try to determine different pollutants in order to determine whether there is certain migration of pollutants between countries, since we have Lithuania as our neighbor. So afterwards we put all this information on the map, and this is what we get. This reef that is located in Nida-Pape, it has been classified as a reef that is exposed to different external impacts. Here we have this Furcellaria lumbricalis, red algae, which is a place where the fish eggs are developed, and in the open sea part of the Baltic Sea, we have mainly these red algae, while in the Riga Gulf we mainly have brown algae. We also identified different, up to 13 invertebrate species, also some 18 macroscopic algae species, and of course this most productive zone or area where the algae thrives is only a small belt somewhere between 4 to 8 meters wide. And of course different types of classifications can be applied. We also have the hard rock reefs exposed to open sea influence, and sometimes they are up to 50 meters deep, and different of course mussels also live on these reefs. And here we can see the western part of the Riga Gulf, and of course the Riga coastline is quite lengthy, and of course we cannot go into great detail. Therefore we try to map around 1/6 part of this coastline in detail, and then follow based on the actual findings. Then we try to model the remaining parts of the reefs. And here you can see what we have modeled, at what depth and what areas we can expect the reefs to be located. But of course, in order to be quite sure, we can of course also explore it on site.
Well, together with colleagues from the Ornithology Society, we decided to establish the main grazing sites for the birds, and Riga Bay is a very important grazing site for the dark ducks and other species of birds. And here you can see the way that the population develops along the bay. So here are the protected marine areas, and altogether we have in our legislation set 7 such areas, 4 in the Riga Bay and 3 in the open sea, in the open parts of the Baltic Sea. And you can see now the Riga Bay and Ieelpa Strait, and you can also see Tuja. So these are the main bird concentration sites, because birds are not feeding only in one place, in one specific point. They are migrating from one site to another. For example, from the western part of the Riga Bay, when they eat enough mussel, or when the mussel runs out, when they run out of mussel, they migrate to another part of the Riga Bay. So that's why the sites where the birds can be met are so many. So based on these surveys, we can develop the management plans for the protected areas, and we can also categorize these areas by their use. And I'm not saying that we are restricting, altogether any kind of activity in any of these protected areas, but there are certain restrictions that have to be met. And here you can see the western part of the Riga Bay and the zoning in terms of use, and this is one of the management plans that we already have in place. So there is a neutral zone, which is for ports, for other activities. Then we have nature reserves and fully protected areas, the dark greens where the reefs are located, dark green areas where the reefs are located. If we look at another map, we can see the open sea from Nida to almost Vansvils. And if we put together the various types of use, like for example shipping, military activity, construction of offshore wind parks, and laying of cables and extraction of minerals, the oil deposits and so on and so forth. We put it all on a map, and we somehow have to squeeze in between all of these elements our most important habitats and protected areas. That's all from me. Thank you for your attention. In our service we also cooperate with the Ministry of Defense, and they have lended us the ship, which you can see in the photo. Any questions? Hello, can you please tell me what's your opinion on the construction of the gas pipeline in the Baltic Sea? Would that have an adverse effect on the sea? For example, them digging something and starting to move these still waters? Well, the thing is, as the gas pipeline is being laid down, and according to the plans, we can already see that we need a much more detailed impact on the environment. So there is no basis, so there is no reason to think that the involved countries have sort of omitted the environmental protection issues. We might say that if they'll stick to the plans as indicated in these reports, so that the sludge that will be brought up from the deeper layers of water as a result of the construction will be fenced off. If it will be fenced off, then we might say that they are doing the maximum in order to avoid any adverse effect. But that, however, does not exclude any accidental problems and consequences. Yeah. very, very scientific answer, but it seems that no, that there should not be an adverse, or the pipeline shouldn't be built. Well, from the economic perspective, we need to have development. Another question, well, basically very closely related to that, the North Sea, which is very close to